So I think I'm actually with the Baroness here. I think Parliament needs to reclaim its authority. Many of these decisions are political decisions. It may well be that people should be banned from wearing crosses. It may well be that we ought to pass laws permitting it. But many of these are things that are suitable for democratic debate, in my view, and not for decisions in the wholly inadequate courtroom. And if I could perhaps not go on too long, but the court's a very cheap way of running politics, because you don't have to persuade all these hundreds of MPs and hundreds of peers to agree with you and deal with party whips and all this. You can just go before a slightly underqualified judge and persuade him.
So, politics has moved from the courtroom and should be brought back to the upper and lower houses. Is this your position?
I feel good that this country brought in race equality laws. And I want to tell you that inequality is nothing that anybody should be happy about. And I know that working class people and all sorts of people are now claiming their rights. Women have claimed their rights. And I'm glad that we have laws whereby if people break those laws, we're not asking for advantages. No one will hire an ignoramus to run the country. And therefore I'm saying we need those laws. I am glad when a black kid gets killed in the street that somebody goes to law and pay for it if it is a racist murder. We still have problems because Stephen's murder has not been, in my opinion, the book has not been closed because the murderers are walking around. I know there are other murderers walking around, but Stephen had no chance. He had no choice. He was black and he was killed because of the color of his skin. Nothing else. You know, and therefore I am glad we have those laws.
Are you glad that they've come through Parliament rather than through statute, or do you not mind?
The Acts of Parliament have to go through statute. At some time it has to be proved in the court, so I'm not arguing. The process is not a concern of mine at this moment. What is a concern of mine is that privileged people and Aryan people have had those privileges, and some are reluctant to lose that privilege. And we'll see more of that in the American situation.
Well, let's move on from the American situation and come closer to home, because you mentioned Stephen Lawrence. The case, as you say, murderer still walking free. Murder because of his colour, but we are seeing murders on the street of black people murdering black people. In fact, before I went to America for this report that you've just seen, the last thing that I did was to go to the funeral of Shaquille Maitland-Smith in Hackney, where my ministry is based. And as I passed the open casket, to see a 14-year-old boy stabbed to death, almost outside his home, I couldn't help but weep for another tragedy. And one man who I know has been doing so much work to try and bring peace back to our streets is our guest, Reverend Nims Abungi. I want to show you just a clip from September 20th, where the people came out to stand up against the violence that we're seeing on the street.
We're scared to address the issues that happen on our streets. But if everybody in London begins to shout when they see something run, stop. If all of us can shout stop and not hide away, all of a sudden the young people or the old people or the people committing the criminal activity will know that a city has risen up to say, we will not have this happen anymore.
Just about gun and knife crime. It's about violence, period. Violence, okay? It was my son that was taken.
You know, the same way, if you're in a, you know what, if you're in a driving ban and you get caught, you go from the car to the prison one time. If you get caught with a knife, they should say, oh, right, you got a knife. Yeah, well, explain that in 5 years when you see your mum. Simple.
I think we really have to ask ourselves what type of society we're creating in the 21st century. And whether it's the law we need, or whether it's the politician, or whether it's the churches, we have to look squarely. I think Reverend Nim says we have to talk about it, and we have to get ourselves ready to know whether what we're doing is creating a society where children are killing each other. I find that quite frightening.
And what kind of things underpinning society would you seek to see change? What have we got to, is it the parents, is it the schools, is it the kids?
I won't make a prediction who has to do this, whether it's the parents who are. I believe we have to look seriously at society. I'm an old-fashioned mum, and I like bringing up my children in a certain way.
But as an old-fashioned mum, just this week, as we go on the programme, we've seen a father spend a night in jail for smacking his child. As an old-fashioned mum, would you be in the next cell along, or things change?
Yes, I think I would be in the next cell, because, you know, I meet a lot of people, and a lot of people who have done well always says their father or mother was a very strict mum and brought them up in this way. Now, I have a reluctance inside of me that an adult should beat a child, but I don't believe that the odd smack does anything. It reminds them what's right and what's wrong.
Can I interject
Sure,
here?
yes, please.
On that clip you showed, on the backdrop on the stage, where 50 to maybe 60 to 100 families of victims of gun or knife crime from every cultural background, from 14-year-old kids, 16, 18, just people who had been killed. That, for me, was one of the most painful moments where you're having to stand with the pain and mothers and fathers saying, why did my child have to die? I don't want to politicize this issue. I think we've first got to recognize on so many strands there are multiple failings. One may look at young people talk about nothing to do. Other people talk about the failing of parents. People talk about the failing of schools. I don't think we can say one particular thing, or the failing of the law. We can't say one particular thing caused us to get to this place. But
can I just challenge you there?
Yeah.
I mentioned Shaquille.
Yeah.
He was killed at around 12 midnight on a Saturday night.
Absolutely.
A 14-year-old.
Right.
I have to ask, with the greatest compassion for the family and all the relatives, what is a 14-year-old child doing on the street at 12 midnight on a Saturday night?
You can refer to Shaquille, but I could tell you of other ones who were not out on the streets at 14. I'm sorry, who were coming, were coming after school, going home, got stabbed for their mobile phone. Children in my church who got challenged with a knife, for their mobile phone. No,
I agree, but what I'm saying, in that context,
have I ever, at 15 or 14, was I ever at one point out, maybe at 11 or 12, maybe. Did I get a clipping and a whipping from my dad later on? Maybe, yes. Did I go for a party? Did we sneak out? George, did you ever sneak out of your house, even in spite of the disciplines of your father? My father was a disciplinarian, so was my mother. But we did do that odd slipping away. In my boarding school, did we try to jump the fence to go for parties? Yes, we did, but yet we got disciplined for it. Now, when an incident happens to an individual, and that person may lose their life, as you've just referred to, let's not suddenly broad brush everything. I don't know the intricacies as to what exactly. So,
and I say it with compassion and not to
right. So I don't want to get into the total blame culture and say, oh, that parent failed. The parent failed to put a certain level of discipline on that child. There are 5 things I've always said, even when we teach about what brings peace. And there's an acronym in my organization about, first is about parenting that's proper. So we don't ignore that. Bring up a child in the way they should go. When they grow up, they won't depart from it. That doesn't mean they won't be killed, but that means they won't depart from it. That's a scriptural truth. E is about education that's effective, ensuring that we have an effective education in schools. A for us is about achievements that are celebrated. So we're not talking about education without a sense of achievement. C for us is the context of communities. It takes a village to raise a child. That's what we believe. And it's not about just the black community or the white community. It's about all of us working together to raise that child. When the